When you stop and consider what you, myself, everyone else that is human, that lives on this planet, we consider that a life form, right? In fact, planet Earth has got lots of life forms. So the question I have been asking is, okay, if by definition, correct? And so let's get the definition of it here. So definition of a life form: the body form that characterizes a kind of organism as a species at maturity, also a kind of organism. A life form or life form is an entity or being that is living. Now, little side factoid. Estimates on the number of Earth's current species range from 10 million to 14 million, of which about 1.2 million have been documented, and over 86% have not yet been described. Whoa! More recently, in May 2016, scientists reported that 1 trillion species are estimated to be on Earth currently, with only 1,000th of 1% described. More than 99% of all species, amounting to over 5 billion species that ever lived on Earth, are estimated to be extinct. Now, I don't know about you, but that just blows my mind. I see people get so wrapped around the axle when we talk about Nibiru, or we talk about a brown dwarf, or we talk about ghost, or God, my forbid, should we talk about religion? But we, as a species, are so minute when you take the fact that there's an estimated 1 trillion species on the planet. Whoa. So this video is about that subject. We're going to talk about life forms. Now, all of us understand that human beings, flesh, for the most part of the species that lives on this planet that we have identified thus far, are carbon-based life forms. That's science. What we have also found out, that there are also non-carbon-based life forms. This is what they call a smoker. It's down the very bottom of the ocean. These are thermal vents. And what we have learned is that there is a species, a life form, that lives off of these things. They live, they're not carbon-based. As I understand, they're silicon-based. Which is amazing to think that a planet has a diverse ecosystem to the degree that we do, Earth is, that we can support. What we're finding out here is very obviously another life form other than being carbon-based. Quite fascinating. So when we get to the subject of defining life, we're now finding that we have to have a much broader definition, a much more liberal thinking, and a far more open mind to understand that life forms, are not what you and I look like. We may be the exception. And I'm going to show you why. We can create life in the lab. We can. It's been done for decades now. Where they are at right now, I just did a video on this very subject, light years. And again, you will see that there's a common theme in my videos, and that is the DNA, folks. There is wonderment here beyond our imagination. What we have found out as well, that this is intelligent life. Is this eventually us? A non-carbon based life form? Is this what the soul looks like? When we talk about the hierarchy of life itself, quite frankly, these bioforms that you and I call bodies are probably not even in the top 10 in hierarchy. This, ladies and gentlemen, is intelligent life, far more abundant than we are, been around much longer than you and I, our species, has ever been. The fact is, you are a living, how should we say, a living buffet. You have on you more microbes feeding off of you right now than you can imagine. Ever felt your eyelid right there, right there as you get those eyelashes, that you ever felt that you felt like there was something crawling? Yeah, there really is. They're feeding off of us. And when we come to the fact of what a life form is, well, I think that you would have to give credence to science, right? That there are viruses and bacterium, right? I mean, trust me, as a survivor of meningitis, bacterial meningitis, I can tell you it sucks. And if you don't think a bacteria can kick your butt, how about kick your butt all the way 6 feet under? It can. So we have to take that this is a bona fide life form, right? You know what? I often think the fact, when you see the characteristics of viruses, microviruses, bacterium, it amazes me. They have a language. They obviously communicate. Why? Well, because I'm speaking. So are you. They talk through us. They are us. They are you. They are I. You know, it's that old expression. You heard that joke? That if a schizophrenic decides to commit suicide, isn't that a hostage situation? It may be what we're in. So I want to talk about the seen and the unseen. Because as we develop, from the moment that we're born into this world, it takes our souls about a good, week to really begin to adapt to these bodies. It's a real shocker. I really hope that death isn't nearly as shocking. But yeah, so we have to understand the seen to the unseen. I love this. It is in the early morning hour that the unseen is seen, and that the far-off beauty and glory, vanquishing all their vagueness, move down upon us till they stand clear as crystal close over against the soul. We're going to be talking a little bit more about this, because when you think about the unseen and how much it actually dominates all of our lives in more ways than what we can understand, it's amazing. So this is Fukushima, the single largest eco-disaster to date. But you know what? What you're not seeing in this picture are the absolute innumerable radiation I mean, kill you. And so often, what we can even see, we can't see, and is often in front of us. As I said, radiation will kill you. Here is just some of the after effects. You want to talk about damaging DNA, brother, this is it. But then again, it's that thing that you think you can see, but you can't see. Now, in this picture, there are 15 snipers. How many can you see? Even in nature itself, we have seen that what we think we see is not what we see at all. Helen Keller, I think, would really have a great perspective on this, wouldn't you think? She is quoted as saying, "It gives me a deep, comforting sense that things seen are temporal and the things unseen are eternal." And it reminds me of Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, calling those things that be not as though they are. All has a tie-in, doesn't it? But again, we become so sure of what we're seeing that you become convinced that if you can't see it the way that you have been taught to see something, then it doesn't exist. Well, it's maybe not always that simple, is it? Because we find that within the natural things of nature here on earth, that so many obvious things that are obvious are not. And those obvious things that we think we see that we cannot see can kill us. We've created artwork that allows us to have a perspective of understanding what our eyes and our brains see, two-dimensional to three-dimensional. But yet, I put forth to you that there may be things that are right above us that we just have not been trained to see. Because visual acuity is a very interesting process, quite miraculous actually, when you begin to think about how you perceive something and how I perceive something. How many of us, either growing up or as parents, have experienced the utter frustration of trying to communicate with that which you gave birth to. But yet, we're learning that to be awake, to become aware, is to be enlightened, to understand that there is far more than what our brains, our realities really is. Life forms. If they're a life form, then you would have to think they would be unique to their environment, right? Philo talked about this. One of the great things I love about Philo was the fact that he was able to firmly implant in my consciousness to understand that this first century philosopher was the fact that he could come back and teach, as he said, the Creator, God. He creates all the time. He's everywhere. He never stops. And there is not a space that is not filled with some form of life. You have to think about that, right? Seriously. Now, taking that and the fact that we lost a lot of the understanding of life from these great thinkers. Heck, even Calvin and Hobbes has got this one. I like what it says. Sometimes I think the surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that none of it has tried to contact us. True? But maybe they have. Maybe there are life forms that we coexist with that we have never recognized. And it requires you to step outside that which sees out of your eyes, to understand there may be something much more going on that we all witness, but we're not quite comprehending. That maybe there are others who have seen and know and realize that maybe life can exist in many different forms, many different chemical states, baselines, and that maybe there is something more to all this. I know this. Every year, we're realizing that we may not be as alone as we think we are. Is it true that the frequency has been increased? That those who are aware are responding? Because if you just do the math, right? Just the simple math. The math says that this is about as crowded as the 405 at 5 o'clock. Brother, it may be so crowded. And if it is, they're all playing to their own song. They got their radios broadcasting in that frequency. I mean, the great minds have done this. They have thought for us. Sagan, Hawkins. And it is simply said that you shouldn't limit life, the search for life, by only that looks like Earth-like. We are so narrow-minded, so bigotry in our supposed intellectualism. And we don't even begin to understand that our ancestors realized it, that every planet, every moon has a frequency of its own. I mean, the thing that they're finding out now about Pluto emits X-rays. What? Venus has its own frequency. What? I mean, come on. We have found codes that have been given by those, either the watchers, whoever, trying to tell us. We know this as well, that we're finding more planets right out there in the old Kuiper Belt. Folks, listen, when you think about the fact that brown dwarfs, they seem to be, more numerous than what we can ever imagine. And if there are stars that are more numerous than what we have been taught to understand, well, planets follow the same course, would they not? Why, of course they would. And these have the ability for life. They do. Think about it. And they all emit a frequency. All of it. As it's been quoted, life is not the unique property of Earth, nor is life in the shape of human beings. Life takes many forms on other planets and far stars, forms that would seem bizarre to humans, as human life is bizarre to other life forms. There may be more above our heads than what you can ever realize. And you need to understand as well, planets, stars, life forms. We know this, that now we can measure the frequency, the tones of moons, planets, all here. It's life, folks. And that's what I'm trying to make you aware. There is so much life around us. Life forms. They're everywhere. By the way, what is the longest time you have spent looking at the sky? Let me know. Remember, if you can, everything, folks. It's what this is all about. Be kind to one another.